Hello and welcome to the Academic Planning Night presentation for mathematics. My name is Grant Colmer and I am the supervisor of mathematics for Berners Township. Even though this is a departure from what has been done historically, I hope this presentation will provide some information for you when selecting your next mathematics course for the upcoming school year. So without further ado, I'm going to share the screen of the presentation as we get started. Okay. So first up, there are three goals I hope to achieve in this presentation. So one, I would like to share out the various resources available to you as it pertains to our mathematics program in Berners Township and Ridge High School. I hope to communicate the various mathematics courses available to incoming ninth grade students and explain the different course offerings we have. Also offer some guiding questions to think about as scheduling season comes upon us. So this presentation will be available for viewing along with this video. Near the bottom of this slide is the direct link to this presentation in case you want to thoroughly look through it. First, let me start out with some resources available to you at your disposal. Number one, the first link is directly to my website where you can find a wealth of information regarding our mathematics programming across the different grade levels. I would draw your attention to the WAMS mathematics program information and RHS mathematics program information web pages for starters, particularly around information in this PowerPoint and in making decisions about future mathematics courses. However, typically any question I receive can really be answered by looking through the information found on this website, also the program of studies as well. The second link is to an academic planning night handout, which would normally be available to students and parents if this event were happening in person. This presentation is largely guided by this handout, and it is an excellent resource as a two-pager of sorts, sort of as a at-a-glance information about the various course is available to incoming ninth grade students. The third link is two links, which I'll go more in depth about on the next slide, but both links provide diagrams which display the various mathematical pathways available to students. The fourth link is a direct link to the mathematics section of the RHS program of studies. Again, most questions I receive about scheduling can either be answered via my website or by taking a closer look at the program of studies and the course descriptions or prerequisite requirements. And finally, again, this is a direct link to the presentation. It's a bit.ly link, so just remember that capitalization is important. So bit.ly/RHS-APN math, capital N, capital RHS, capital APN. Okay, so first, let's get started with the different mathematics pathways available. Shown on this slide are two graphics generally I use with students and parents. The chart on the left represents the typical mathematics course progressions for the course grade level and accelerated mathematical pathways as a broad overview. These represent typical course progressions. This chart is meant to be read vertically, so if a student is currently enrolled in Algebra 1-08, the typical next mathematics course is CP Geometry. Again, it represents typical course progressions. Moving forward, I'll be referencing this chart in future slides as I think it helps with a visual aid for most students and for most parents. However, please note movement between the pathways is possible. There are specific grade requirements to continue in courses in the accelerated pathways, and in future courses, there may be proficiency exams. All of that information, though, can be found in the program of studies, also in a detailed descriptions for each course. Please make sure you pay attention to those. On the chart on the right, which is very small, notably, however, it is hyperlinked, which you can make it much larger. It provides a very detailed overview of all the possible mathematics course progressions for each of the different mathematical pathways we offer. That was a lot of mathematical right in there. This chart is represented as a flow chart and is meant to be read horizontally as you go throughout. So the different math pathways going from left to right. On this chart, you'll see the different prerequisite requirements for movement between the different courses that's outlined again in the program of studies. It's another visual aid to help you make decisions about where to go next or which course is coming up in the future. This starts in 5th grade and goes all the way up to 12th grade. So over the course of the next few slides, I will go into a little bit greater detail regarding the typical course options available if you are enrolled in Math 8, Algebra 1, or Geometry as an 8th grade student. So I hope to provide some context of what you might expect in terms of the workload and expectations when enrolled in the various courses coming up. First up is Math 8. So reading the chart from the previous slide, the next course available to students currently enrolled in Math 8 is CP Algebra 1. Algebra 1 represents the fundamental language we use to communicate mathematical ideas. If you're studying a language right now, mathematics is another language, and we use that to communicate our ideas or expressions, usually of logic, to convince people of you have a real world situation that we can apply a mathematical idea. Algebra is the language we use to communicate that idea. So while you have been exposed to and are learning some fundamentals of algebra right now in Math 8, CP Algebra 1 fully dives in and builds upon the foundations you have been learning up to this point. You can read the full description of the course on the right-hand side. This is directly pulled from the program of studies for your future reference. Also on the left-hand side, you'll notice just something that's throughout these slides is, again, this is taken from that academic planning night handout. There's information about the prerequisite requirements and also some information about generally what this course is or the expectations of it. So as noted, this is a college preparatory course with no weighted credit. In general, for all CP courses, some independent work is required with an average homework per night about 25 to 30 minutes. So just please note, if you're looking at the prerequisites, if you are currently in Algebra 1-08 and achieve a C or below, you will be enrolled in this course as well. Next up is Algebra 1. So if you're enrolled in Algebra 1 course in 8th grade, then you are on what we call a 1 year ahead accelerated mathematics pathway. Looking at either chart from a few slides ago, and you can see it at the top right-hand corner, this course pathway generally leads to a course sequence resulting in students taking calculus by the time they are in 12th grade. However, one of the single greatest questions we get on academic planning night when we used to be in person and come up to the table is saying, can I take honors geometry? So I would like to address that first because that's generally a question that I get most often. And since there are 2 levels of Algebra 1 in 8th grade, Algebra 1-08 and Accelerated Algebra 1, the next mathematics course depends largely on your current course and your final grade. So generally speaking, though, again, general terms in this presentation, students enrolled in Algebra 1-08 typically go on to CP Geometry in 9th grade, and students enrolled in Accelerated Algebra 1 typically continue on in Honors Geometry. So this graphic hopefully provides a better visual aid of the prerequisite requirements that are needed on either course, Algebra 1-08 or Accelerated Algebra 1, in order to move on to Honors Geometry. So as you can see from the graphic, Algebra 1-08, you need a final grade of an A or higher in order to be enrolled in Honors Geometry. And if you are in Accelerated Algebra 1 currently, then you need a final grade of a B- or below in order to continue on into Honors Geometry. So let's talk about geometry in general and the differences between the 2 courses. So what is geometry? Geometry is the best course, although some people may disagree, although I am a geometrist and I really love the subject of geometry. Geometry is a branch of mathematics that is concerned with the properties and configurations of geometric objects. It's sort of a lofty definition, but those geometric objects largely point to like points, lines, and circles being the most basic of these. In these 2 courses, you're learning the same content because it is geometry. You will study traditional, what's called Euclidean geometry, which deals with points, lines, planes, and circles, as noted in the definition, and how these different objects interact with one another. And how could you say these are such basic things? Well, geometry is a big expansion of how these things interact. It's a really fascinating subject to take very simple things and mathematical constructs and extrapolate the most intense ways possible how these things interact. It's super cool. So along with traditional geometry, coordinate geometry, which is a system of geometry where the position of points on a coordinate plane is described using an order pair of numbers like you would see in Algebra 1, and how, if you place these geometric objects on a coordinate plane, how do they interact with one another. And finally, transformational geometry, which studies geometry by focusing on groups of geometric transformations and the patterns that arise from them. So please notice the prerequisites for both courses. These align with the previous slide and again answers the question, how can I take honors geometry? The prerequisites are found up above. This is also taken from that academic planning night handout. On the right-hand side, you'll see the two course differences in terms of the descriptions. They largely cover the same content. However, I'd like to draw your attention to the bulleted list under which each of the two courses, which highlight the difference between maybe the expectations of the two courses. So notice in CP geometry, there is some independent work again for our CP geometry or CP students in general. For example, suppose students are learning a new concept. In CP geometry, the teacher may model problems with students through a class discussion or engage students in a short class activity about the topic in groups. Whereas in honors geometry, students would be expected to investigate that new concept independently or in groups, come to a conclusion about that new concept, and formally prove their mathematical thinking about that new concept. The difference lies in the level of mathematical thinking or independent thinking placed on the student and their ability to reason abstractly about the geometry. Another difference comes in terms how the knowledge is utilized. So knowledge about theorems or about the different concepts that are being displayed. In CP geometry, an emphasis is placed on a student's acquiring the necessary content knowledge as they have been in like Algebra 1-08. Whereas in honors geometry, an emphasis is really placed on students not only acquiring, meaning I learned it, I can do some problems, but also applying this knowledge in a variety of novel ways, novel being the key. For example, on a test involving a theorem, let's say about isosceles triangles, a CP geometry student may be expected to apply this theorem as was demonstrated from a class discussion or group activity or homework problem, whereas an honors student might be expected to utilize this theorem to prove another triangle property not experienced from a homework problem or class discussion. Or may be expected to utilize this theorem in a way that they have not seen before, but is an extension of maybe they've been studying in class. Again, that's an emphasis on the novel, novel being a key word in that difference. So students in honors geometry or honors math classes also have an affinity to thoroughly show their mathematical thinking and be able to communicate this in writing. Furthermore, students electing to take honors geometry and having met the prerequisite requirements should have a strong interest in the subject of mathematics. Again, all this information can be found in either the Academic Planning Night handout or the RHS Program of Studies. Finally, students currently enrolled in geometry in 8th grade, as noted in the Program of Studies and outlined on this slide, if you're currently enrolled in geometry, -08 and earning a grade of B or higher, then your next mathematics course is typically the Honors Algebra 2. Students enrolled in geometry in 8th grade represent the highest level accelerated pathway called the 2-year ahead accelerated pathway. This pathway generally prepares students to take 2 years worth of AP calculus starting when they are in 11th grade. In Honors Algebra 2, students will be exposed to a demanding and intensely rigorous curriculum focusing on honing a student's algebraic skills. This course is a challenging college preparatory course with regular independent work expected and required. An emphasis on the knowledge gained from this class will be focused on how this is applied to various mathematical problems. Homework's typically about 30 to 35 minutes, although that depends really largely on the student, and begins to prepare students for work in the AP level in the future. So finally, let me end with a question. What is right for me? What mathematics course is right for me? Or if you have options available meeting prerequisite requirements, then perhaps some of these questions may be able to consider. Some in math, also in your other courses. So do you have a passion in mathematics? If you do, that may lead to some course selections if you meet some prerequisites. If you don't, that's okay too. You're noticing just that we have a wide range of available pathways for students to explore mathematics as confident and learn the material as best that we can. So can you balance the demands of your choice course with the rest of your curriculum or extracurricular schedule? This question will be with you for the entirety of high school. As you gain more knowledge about other courses and other subjects, or you are looking to do other things, the question of can you balance? And that's the single greatest advice that I've given to parents and students is saying, can you balance the course that you are selecting? And we would highly advise you to take a balanced course load approach. Do you have confidence in your ability to apply Algebra 1 knowledge in a variety of problems? Do you? Or do you not? It's one of those. So some guiding questions. Can you independently make sense of problems and persevere in solving them? What are your college and career aspirations for mathematics? What course in mathematics do you wish to take your senior year in high school? Look at the progression, the course progressions that are provided on the few slides ago. Take a look at what your pathway is looking like at the end of 12th grade. Do you have particular goals for an AP level in mathematics? And make sure you notice the prerequisite requirements. So if you still have questions, I encourage you to talk to your current teacher or perhaps at least please consider to take the recommendation from your teacher seriously. Teachers will be making recommendations within Genesis, and this is a very good knowledge base to say, what do my teachers expect, or what do they think that the next course should be for me? Since they are the ones who have the most knowledge about your mathematical performance and insight into further course progressions at our high school, I would highly trust their judgment. So again, your teacher is a resource to talk about your future math course and also speak with your guidance counselor about the different mathematical pathways available. One more thing though, if you still have questions, I will be available to answer those questions as a Q&A sessions during an open Zoom Q&A conference call on February 3rd at 2 p.m. The direct link to the Zoom meeting can be found on this slide. Also, I think it's going to be published through the community bundle. So I hope this presentation has given you some insight in terms of the next course sequence in your math courses. I really want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you continue to be safe and healthy as we navigate really in this unprecedented time in our history. Take care.